Hello viewers, welcome to Top Notch TV. With you today is teacher Fidelis, and we continue with the discussion on how to answer questions in English paper 1. And as you prepare for your KCSE, this is something that might help you revise on English paper 1. In our last episode, we discussed how to answer questions in functional writing, cloze test, and we looked at question 1 in the oral skills section. So today we shall focus on other questions away from the question 1 that is tested in the oral skills section. What other questions might you expect and how do you answer these questions? So number 1, we shall look at etiquette. Etiquette, how do you appreciate someone when they have done something for you? If someone has presented a present to you during an anniversary, how do you appreciate this person? You say, thank you. If you have done something wrong to someone, what do you say? You say, sorry. If you want to interrupt, assuming that you went home and your mother or your father had a guest in the house and you want to interrupt, how do you politely interrupt? You say, excuse me, sorry for the interruption. Can I? And then state whatever it is that you want to talk about. Now, if you want to inquire something or get a clarification about something, how do you do this? Excuse me, pardon me, may you repeat what you said? So questions on etiquette, we look for these words. So when you have done something wrong, do you say sorry? So in this case, what we do, you can get an exam question whereby you have been given a dialogue. In this dialogue, maybe we have two people having the conversation and one person is not, using etiquette. If they want to get some information from the person they're talking to, they're not asking that in a polite way. They're saying, what did you say? Keep talking. I want to understand what you're saying. But if you're using words that showcase etiquette, then you should say, pardon me. Can you kindly explain it further? So if you're having a dialogue that you have two people who are having a conversation, then the examiner might ask you, what are the shortcomings of maybe person A? What are the shortcomings of person B? So as a learner, you should go back to the dialogue that has been presented to you, look at the presentation or the conversation going on and pick the items that this person has used to showcase that they don't have etiquette at all. In other instances, you might be given a dialogue and you're supposed to fill in some blank spaces. Maybe a conversation between a student and a teacher. So as a student, if you're going to talk to your teacher, how do you address your teacher? Good morning, sir. Good morning, madam. So if you're to say good morning and you stop there, then you don't score. Before even you start filling in the blank spaces, you're supposed to go through the conversation. Get to know the content in that conversation. What is the discussion? What is the teacher asking? What is the student looking for? And away from such a simple dialogue, you can also get maybe a conversation on negotiation. You have gone to a certain shop and you want to buy a shirt. And this seller says this shirt is, say, $50. And you think, oh, maybe $50 is a lot. So when you have this conversation, how do you ensure that you're using words that are not impolite? So the next thing I want us to discuss is interviews. What do you do before and during an interview? So when you prepare to go for an interview, you need to do a couple of things. Number 1, do you have your documents ready? The CV, is it there? Do you have any certificates? Are they ready? Have you researched on the organization so that in case the interviewer gets to ask you questions such as, what is the vision in our organization? What made you maybe choose to come for an interview in our organization? In this case, no, you can talk about the vision they have, the mission they have, and so on and so forth. So research on the organization, get to know something about what the organization entails. The next thing, get your outfit ready. You're going for an interview, you need a formal outfit. So this is what you do before the interview. And then talk about keeping time. Get to the interview on time. Don't wait until maybe the interview is supposed to start at 9 and you're getting to the interview at 9:59 or 9:10. That will look bad on you, and most likely you won't get the job. Now, what do you do during the interview? We're looking at how do you answer your questions. Are you honest enough? So number one, as you answer these questions, be honest. Give honest answers. Maintain a meaningful eye contact. Maybe the interviewer is asking you a question, and instead of focusing on the interviewer, you're looking at maybe what is happening in the office, you're looking at the other people in the office or anything else, but not the interviewer. So it is important that you maintain a meaningful eye contact as you give your answers to the interviewer. And then the next thing, when you have been asked to answer these questions, be precise, be precise, be concise. Don't give so many details that are not helping you secure the job. Be very straightforward as you answer these questions. And then polite language as you answer these questions. Maybe sometimes the examiner will, not the examiner, but the interviewer will ask a question that you don't deem, comfortable with. And as much as you don't want to be rude, then look for a way and be polite as you answer these questions. The next thing we shall look at is turn taking. When you're having a discussion, think about a group discussion, think about a conversation, think about negotiations. So we can look at the three things under turn taking. How do you know that it's your turn to talk? How do you know that the person who is speaking or presenting is done talking? So for turn taking, this is something also that you can expect from the questions in the oral skills. So look at your form 2 work. What are the cues that shows the presenter is done talking? You can look for the nonverbal cues. Maybe they're urging you to talk. You can look for the nonverbal cue, or you can look for the verbal cues when the voice is trailing off. Then you will know this person is about to finish what they are presenting on. And so when you have that, then you know that it's your turn to talk. So that is something that you can also look into, and it's a possible area that can be tested in oral skills. Then we have debates. When we look at debates, Form 1 work, Form 2 work, again, so as much as we're saying that we're looking at what is expected, go back and look at some of the questions, some of the notes that you have on debates. When you're debating, what do you do before and what do you do after? And then maybe something that I can mention, as you talk about debates and interviews, we can also talk about stage fright, and especially for debates, because you have to do a presentation, you have to support a motion, you have to oppose a motion. So what do you do before a research? You have been presented with a motion, research on the motion. Have the points. As you research, don't just read and you're not looking at, maybe you're not writing down the main points, because when it comes to the presentation, how will you present the points? So as you do the research, also make sure that you're writing down the points. So that is another point you consider before a debate. Do a mock presentation. How do you do a mock presentation? You can do it in front of a mirror. You can do it in front of a group of friends. In this case now, when you go to the actual presentation, you're better because the points that you have. It also works on your confidence. You get more confident if you have rehearsed on the presentation that you have. Now, it is important to note that as you give your answers, look at what the question entails. What would you do before and during a debate? So as you give these answers, can you indicate that before you can rate? And again, remember, we have said that you need to either echo the question or, and better still, personalize your answers. What would you? So the question would be, What would you do before and during a debate? What would you do before and during a debate? So as you give your answers, then we expect something like, I would do the following before a debate. I would do the following during a debate. So in this case, so that in case you're having say 4 marks in this question, you'll get to understand that you'll get 2 marks for what you do before, and you get 2 other marks for what you do during the presentation. So the moment you demarcate this as you give your answer, then it just sets you up for higher marks. So during the debate, clearly state your argument. Clearly state the motion that you have. Be audible. You can be presenting everything that is correct, but no one can hear you. No one can hear you. So you need to be audible. Project your voice. So you'd say, I would project my voice. I would use polite language. I would clearly state my side of the argument, among other things that you can use during a debate. So in this case, if you have been given either of what we're discussing here, ensure that you're indicating that. Then I have mentioned something about stage fright, and some of the questions that you can get include, how would you tell that a certain student has stage fright? You can look at the way they are sweating. Maybe the student is sweating, they keep moving up and down, they are sweating, they are shaking, the voice is shaky. So again, personalize your answer. I would know that this student has stage fright because of, then you list what you have. How do you overcome? How do you overcome stage fright? So again, you can do some physical exercises, breathe in and breathe out. You can have mock presentations. When you rehearse, when you present before someone, you get better. You get better before you start presenting. You can look for a familiar face in the crowd. So this makes you think, maybe I'm just speaking to this particular person. And so, you won't be so afraid as you do the presentation. Group discussions, this is something else that you can get in English paper 1. And this is something you can now consider going back to your Form 3 work. When you have a group discussion, how do you ensure that it is successful? Now, I can maybe come up with a question and say your teacher of English asked you to be the chairperson in the group discussion about the Samaritan. How would you ensure that the discussion is successful? How would you ensure that the discussion is successful? So in this case, look at number 1. Have you introduced the idea? Have you given the information to the members in your group? Number 2, do you have someone who is acting as the secretary to take down the points? Because you have said, even as you research, even as you have a discussion, then you should have someone noting down the points. So have you ensured that you have someone who is actually noting down the points? Number 3, allow every person to talk, to share their opinion, so that now this becomes a discussion and not just one person giving, their ideas or their opinions. We have telephone conversations, and these again you can get some questions on etiquette. So if you have a telephone conversation, if you're calling someone, what do we expect? Did you say hi to this person? When this other person is talking, are you listening to the other person, or you keep, cutting him or her short? Are you shouting? Or you're just coming, listening to what is happening? So again, this is something that you should work on your Form 2 work. Look at telephone conversations or telephone etiquette. The next item is bowing and curtsy. This is a question you get on when do we bow? When do we curtsy? Form 2, Form 1 work, sometimes it's a gesture of showing respect. In other communities, it's a way of, of saying hi to someone. So when you look at this, it might look simple, but it's actually something that you can get some questions on, and so you can look at it also. Next, we have, and this we have looked at nonverbal cues in communication. And I want to be specific, and especially when we talk about gestures versus dramatization. How do you now demarcate what's a gesture? What is dramatization? So if you're just using, say something like waving, you're nodding, you're saying, this was very good. These are gestures. They enhance communication, because when you nod and you're listening to someone, they see that you're actively listening. For eye contact, we said it has to be meaningful. So if a student just says, I would use eye contact, I would maintain eye contact, again, you won't score. So you say, I will maintain a meaningful eye contact with my audience. For dramatization, then if you're mimicking something, if you're moving past the window that is just closed here, and you may be mimicking how a person was digging. So again, now this goes to dramatization. So you have to be careful when you talk about dramatization and gestures. Then I want us to talk about paying attention. Paying attention. How do you know? How do you know that the audience was paying attention to what you're saying? The other question would be, how do you know that the audience was distracted? How do you know that the audience was not listening to you? If they're moving up and down, if they're sleeping, if they're not answering your questions, if they're not, they're not keen on the gestures that you're using, and they're not reacting to them, you would know that these people are not listening. How do you ensure that the audience keeps listening to you? We go back to the use of verbal cues and non-verbal cues. If you're narrating a story, you could even come up with an attire. If it's a myth, you can even come up with maybe the feathers, that showcase how a certain group of people, a certain community was having maybe talk about a social event. And this ensures that your audience is attentive because of the props that you're using. So listening actively, how do you know that this person is listening and they're not just looking at you? Look at the eye contact. Again, are they maintaining a meaningful eye contact? Are they leaning forward? When someone is talking to you, you lean forward, then you see that they're interested, they're listening to what you're saying. So again, on listening actively, those are some of the things that you should consider. And maybe I'll share a few questions. Think about them. See whether you can come up with some answers. Also think about any other questions that you would want us to work on, and leave a comment. Leave a comment in the comment section. Listen to this question. How would you prepare? Listen to this question. How would you prepare to perform a narrative to an audience? How would you prepare to perform a narrative to an audience? Let's see what you'll come up with. Another question, how would you capture the attention of the audience when giving a speech? How would you capture the attention of the audience when giving a speech? In this case, we're looking at maybe you're having a narrative, you're having a song that you want to sing. How would you capture the attention of the audience? Number 3, if you're narrating a story in class, how would you know that the class is attentive? If you were narrating a story in class, how would you know that the class is attentive? Again, we're looking at listening actively. So attempt these 3 questions, see what you come up with. When you go back to school, you can ask your teachers of English to help out, but I'm looking out for personalizing of the answers. How would you prepare to perform? So as you give these answers, as you write down these answers, we should see you saying, I would do ABCD. I would do this and that. So try and come up with something, and maybe your teachers can assist. And so these are some of the areas that we can that we get in oral skills. And last but not least, we talk about the short forms. When we look at the short forms, we're looking at tongue twisters, riddles, we're looking at puns and proverbs. So if you're getting, say, something like a riddle, sometimes you'll be presented with a genre and you asked, what type of genre is this? So what makes a tongue twister different from a riddle? So when you look at a riddle, we have a formula. We have two parts. That is the question part and the answer part. And then students sometimes keep saying, we have riddles, we have tongue twisters, and maybe it's just one. So if you're having a tongue twister, give a full answer and say, this is a tongue twister. The next thing, away from getting the genre, we can be asked questions such as, what are the functions? What are the functions of maybe a tongue twister? For a tongue twister, number one, they entertain. You get entertained when people keep trying to say this tongue twister without giving the wrong spelling. They test on pronunciation. They test on articulation of words. When you look at a riddle, you can look at questions such as the stages of a riddle performance. So what are the 6 stages? If you need or if you want to score in this area, then you must identify the stage and then give an illustration in such a way that if you say the first stage is invitation, then how do we see that happening? Say the person posing the riddle say, riddle, riddle. No, the person has invited, the invitation. They have invited the people to the riddling session. What is the acceptance? What does the audience say? They say, riddle, come, and then present the riddle. And then you go all the way up until you give the last stage, that is the answer. When you give the answer, then you have given the answer to the riddle that you have posed. So this is a question that carries almost 6 marks, and it's very, very simple as long as you follow the instructions. If you're having something like a proverb, then again, you might be provided that genre, that is a proverb, and you're asked to identify the genre. So then, looking at whatever you have, then you can say this is a proverb. What are the functions of the proverb or the functions of proverbs? Then you can say, number one, they educate, they warn, they give more information about a certain phenomena or whatever it is that you have at hand, whether it's a riddle, whether it's a tongue twister or a pun. And in this case, looking at all the areas that we have discussed, then we can confidently say that you can get 45, 50 out of 60 in this area. But the key point is, number one, go through your work. Because even if you have the pointers on, say, debate, but you don't know what a debate is, it means that even if you get a question on debate, then you can't give the correct answers. So students at home, go through your work, go through the notes that you have, and then know how to answer the questions. Because sometimes, even as you give the correct answers, if you don't give the answers the way, is the way that is expected, then you don't score. Now, if you're supposed to say, personalize an answer, and then you decide to say, okay, what are some of the nonverbal cues you'd use? Then say, number one, eye contact. Number two, this and that. Number three, you will not score. Personalize those answers. If you say, I would use gestures, what gestures? In what terms? What are you talking about? So go back to the narrative at hand, go back to maybe the poem at hand and say, I'm having this line in this particular poem. So I would use gestures to bring out the aspect of a bird flying. So I would raise my hands and, showcase this. Maybe the poem is about the birth of a child, and maybe this is a happy happening. So you say, I would smile. Or the mother smiled when she heard the baby crying. Maybe the baby was just the baby had been born at that particular moment. So when you hear a baby crying, then the baby is alive. So you'd say the mother smiled. The mother smiled. So the use of facial expressions. So the moment you use the verbal or non-verbal cues, link the answer that you have with what you have been given. And then lastly, maybe we can talk about the sound devices. For you to score, identify the sound device, give an illustration. Then present the line that you have picked and underline the sounds that have been repeated. And with that, you'll be able to get better marks in this area. Then differentiate between ideophones and onomatopoeia. One student will say, okay, onomatopoeia is this and this, but onomatopoeia, we talk about the English words. If you use your dictionary, then you'll get these words. If you talk about ideophones, then these are non-English words. Ensure that you get the demands of the question. If you don't, then you won't give the correct answers. And with these, I'm very sure that we can easily get an A in English. In case of any other questions that you might have, any other question that you would want us to look at, leave the questions in the comment below. Subscribe, follow us, and look at all the episodes that we have done on functional rating, and I'm very sure you'll get that coveted A in English. And up till next time, it's a goodbye from us. Goodbye.